This conference will now be recorded.
And also make sure that the lens cap is off and that you pressed power. I have failed to do all of those things before. And Andrew can probably share similar experiences. Also forgetting a memory card for the
Oh no, I've
camera.
never had it. Kurt, I had a student this term who for some reason thought that he was supposed to before putting the card into the reader to download all his footage, that he was supposed to format it.
Oh,
And
great.
so he formatted the card after his entire film and lost everything. So remember to format your card first, then make the movie. Don't format it again until you get that footage.
Wait, so it's socks first, then shoes? Or is it the other way around?
It actually worked out okay because it ended up being an interesting creative problem, because then he had one day to make finish his do his film entirely over again, and he made it with like stop motion cardboard cutouts because he
Okay.
had to throw it together so quickly.
Yesterday I'm in the middle of doing Q&As with all of our filmmakers for the film festival. And yesterday I interviewed a 6-year-old who made a stop motion film. And it is so intimidating to know that a 6-year-old can make such a great film, because it's really remarkable. All done with paper and just her cell phone. And it looks really good. Better than what I could
Awesome.
do stop motion.
Oh yeah, I've never done stop motion before, so.
And for Mary Jane and Clem and Nolan and Virginia and Joni, what we're talking about when we say stop motion is a form of animation. If you've seen Wallace and Gromit, or if you remember Gumby, or things like that. South Park actually originally was done with stop motion, but you pose either figures or paper cutouts or clay, and you take one photo, and then you move it ever so slightly, and then you take another photo, and figure you're doing about 24 photos for every single second of film. Multiply that by however long the film is, and that's a whole lot of photos. People don't need to be muted, by the way. You're welcome to say hello.
We're shy.
Oh, okay. Well,
I know that voice.
Hey, Andrew.
Jenny,
I'm trying to
how
get
you
my.
doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Here we are.
Hello.
there you
Come
are.
out of the shadows for you. I can only imagine how it is to try and teach a class with everyone obscured. What are they doing?
I mean, I've done it with 40 students obscured. It's like talking to a wall. It's like, oh, okay, is anyone here? Is anyone listening? I don't know.
We're all eating breakfast. We don't want you to see.
Well, I sent out an email to everyone who signed up, reminding them that we are starting our sessions. I heard back from 1 or 2 people that for whatever reason, schedules didn't work out this morning. So I said, we want you to be a part of all of the sessions, but we are recording things, so we will be able to post the recording. But still, if at all possible, please join us, because we want these things to be interactive. It's not just going to be us telling you do this, do that. We want to incorporate different things that we will do throughout the camp. So you can't do that if you're just watching the recording after the fact. But still, thank you to
we do have a
those
little
us who
bit
are
of sort of
joining us.
orientation to go over.
I know we have a
So
lot
do we want to
to
go
get
ahead and
to.
get started, Kurt?
Yeah, we might want to, and then hopefully Rachel and Connor and few others on our list who signed up are fashionably late.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to the Klamath Film Summer Film Fellowship. Can everyone, hopefully everyone can hear me okay.
Yes.
All right, great.
Mary Jane, Clem, and Nolan, if
Well,
you could give us
Kurt,
that quick mic check.
Hello.
Hello.
Just making sure you're there.
what about Joni? Do we have Joni?
Yes.
Yes, I'm here. Yep.
Okay, great. All right. Well, I am Andrew Gay. I am an associate professor of digital cinema at Southern Oregon University, and I will be co-hosting the first few sessions here with Kurt, who, I don't know, does everyone know you, Kurt, or do you need to introduce yourself?
They've gotten a couple emails from me, but I might as well say I'm Kurt Lidke, and I am the executive director of Klamath Film. It is a nonprofit organization based in Klamath Falls that promotes filmmaking throughout Southern Oregon. I'm also a filmmaker myself and a newspaper journalist. I do a lot of news style video coverage. And I am in the middle of not only this film camp, but I'm also putting together a film festival that'll happen in mid-September, the 8th annual Klamath Independent Film Festival.
So you're saying you're keeping busy?
A little bit, yeah.
My own background, I have an MFA in film and digital media from the University of Central Florida in Orlando. I have been teaching professionally for 10 years now, full-time. Prior to going into full-time teaching, I also worked as a production manager, production coordinator, assistant director, and location manager for commercials, independent film, reality television, and industrials, all that kind of stuff. So that's my background. Kurt just said a little bit about Klamath Film, the Klamath Independent Film Festival. Also, as I mentioned, I'm with the Digital Cinema program at Southern Oregon University. We're co-sponsoring this event. Our program is a bachelor's degree in digital cinema production. We are the most production-oriented film program in the state of Oregon. PSU, for instance, has the biggest film school, but theirs is mostly sort of film studies. It's like a lot of history and theory. We do some history and theory, that's important, but our program is really designed to get students hands-on, working with filmmaking equipment and making films pretty much from day one. So that's our program. If you're interested in learning more, you can reach out to me anytime. I'd be happy to talk to you about that. And Kurt, you want to say something about some of your other sponsors here?
Yeah, so this film camp is free thanks to the organizations that you see on this slide right here. Originally, this camp was going to be a summertime in-person thing, and then COVID-19 hit, and we had to pivot a little bit. Thankfully, grant support from the Oregon Cultural Trust, as well as the Klamath County Cultural Coalition, they don't have a logo for some reason, made this possible to still be able to present this online. And we also are being sponsored by the Klamath Folk Alliance. And later on this week, we will be joined by a couple of people from the Klamath Folk Alliance. They're a fantastic collective of local musicians that coordinate concerts and special events. And they're going to come in and talk to us about how important music is to setting the emotional tone for film. So we did get some grants for this, and thank you to everyone who joined. We would love to be doing this in person, if at all possible. Maybe next year we will be able to do this in person, where you can see, feel, and touch all the cameras and the equipment and get hands-on, but we're going to try to make this as enjoyable as we can from a virtual level. So we really appreciate Oregon Cultural Trust and the Klamath County Cultural Coalition and Klamath Folk Alliance for making this film camp possible.
Awesome. All right, so we did want to have just a moment to have everybody introduce themselves. So if you could tell us your name, your favorite movie, and what you love about it. And I'll start us off, and then I guess we'll call on people so that people aren't jumping on top of each other. Again, I'm Andrew. My favorite movie, I'd say it's hard for me to narrow it down to one. I kind of have a favorite movie in every genre. But probably the one I always come back to is Back to the Future. For me, as someone who really loves screenwriting, I see that as a film that just every moment is perfectly used. There's not a wasted second in that movie. Every beat, every second on the page, every word on the page and the script, and every second on screen is either setting up or paying off. There's really no waste to that movie, and it's one I can watch over and over again. So how about Mary Jane? Mary Jane, are you there?
Yes, I'm here now. I'm Mary Jane, and I've lived here for 10 years, and my favorite movie is really hard to one favorite movie. But I do like Charlie Chaplin's movies, and I can't think of probably individual names of his movies, but probably if I could pick one favorite movie, it would be one of his. I just love them all. They're a perfect way to add just a little lightness to any day.
I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit. Did
On
you
my
say
end,
Charlie Chaplin?
Oh, did you hear me at all? Or
It was kind of muffled. I didn't hear who you said that your favorite actor was and liked all of their movies.
oh, Charlie Chaplin.
Oh, fantastic.
And
Great.
I thought
Actually,
that's what you said.
yeah, Payday is one movie that I like, and I don't know. I just any Charlie Chaplin movie I've seen, I just have to put all on the same level, I guess.
well, Chaplin is a great example for I think especially beginning filmmakers. I think oftentimes, and we'll talk about the parameters of what we're going to be doing in this camp, but I think a lot of times beginning filmmakers sit down and they try to do these very dialogue-driven stories that just bog down and they get really dull and nothing happens. And I think Chaplin is one of the best ways to learn how to tell a story because all in the action, it's all in that visual storytelling and what you can do without dialogue, without characters doing a lot of talking to each other, just doing it all through action is a really great example. So I always recommend that watch Chaplin.
Chaplin is Charlie Chaplin is also incredibly important as far as editing goes. He wasn't just a great actor, but he really helped define what film editing is and what Chaplin largely created as far as structuring film a century ago is largely what we still do to this day. We just do it digitally instead of with physical film. But the process, the method that Charlie Chaplin largely created is the standard go-to that people use to this day for filmmaking. So incredibly important person and absolutely brilliant one. Another great one to look at is Buster Keaton, who is probably he was from the same era. Buster Keaton is probably the single greatest stuntman of all time. When you watch some of his films, the things that they pulled off, and that was with no safety nets and no safety protocols. How he didn't kill himself on set 100 times over is beyond me.
Yes, he's great. I like him too.
Oh, well, thank you, Mary Jane. How about Clem? Clem, can you introduce yourself?
Hi. I'm Clem, and my favorite movie is probably Avengers Endgame, just because I really like the whole Marvel and superhero kind of movies, and then I also feel like it's a really good wrap up to the whole Avengers saga.
All right, great. My kids are currently obsessed with the Marvel movies. They just watched. We have Disney Plus, so they just watched all the way through and did a marathon.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have Jenny and Nick?
Here we go. There I am. Hey.
Hello.
So my favorite movie, I don't know if it's really favorite, but one of my top movies would be Run Lola Run. And I like it because I like the, well, I like the pacing of it for one. I just love that it just moves really fast and that it's this driving force that just keeps you engaged the whole time. And I also like the use of cartoon within it. I thought that was a really unique thing to help further the plot. Yeah, I liked the whole concept of the multiple ways it could have come out based on different different engagements, however she went about getting the money to help her her boyfriend or whatever. So I love that whole movie and the plot and the way it moves and gets the story across.
Cool. I'm Nick. Favorite movie? I tend to get more into TV shows, sort of plot-wise or character-wise or anything like that. But if I had to pick a favorite movie, I'd probably go with Call Me by Your Name, just because it's so like cinematically and aesthetically pleasing. Like I tried to get into the book and all of that, but I think the way that they usually when you convert a book to a movie and you have to cut it down a good deal, that makes the movie worse than the book in a lot of folks' eyes. But I think the way that they were able to convert that story and really bring an aspect of cinematography to it was awesome. I think they did a great job with it.
And what's your favorite TV show?
Favorite TV show? Ooh. Um, shoot. I don't know. My buddies just got me into Hannibal, which is incredibly intense, but insanely brilliant. So not necessarily the top of my like recommended list for other people, because you have to be a very specific kind of person who can very specifically handle that level of intensity.
I am not that kind of person.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay. I don't like most horror things, but because of like the psychological aspect of that, it's fascinating.
One quick thing about Call Me by
I
Your
agree.
Name, Nick. Last year we had the writer of or the screenplay adapter James Ivory, who is from Klamath Falls.
I know.
I've told him that a couple times, Kurt.
Okay, he comes home every summer. And last year we showed that film here in Klamath, and we did a Q&A with him afterwards. The video of that is online somewhere. I can probably track that down and email it to you. But it's utterly fascinating to hear a gentleman who has worked in the film industry for 50 plus years and is an Academy Award winner to talk about his experiences with that film. So
Yeah, I'd love that. It's awesome.
All right, Joni.
Hi. Yeah, I would say probably my favorite movie is The Matrix. I love how it takes a really dense philosophical idea and a dense text that most people probably cannot get through, and just makes it really accessible by giving it these kind of superhero like very exaggerated characters, like kind of overly dramatic, almost operatic characters. So I'm interested in that type of storytelling. I'm a poet, kind of first and foremost, so that's my primary art form. Filmmaking is really new to me, but just something I wanted to explore during quarantine. And yeah, I am from rural Oregon. I'm quarantining in Portland, but I split my time between Portland and Grants Pass. So if I get to film any cool outdoor scenes, it will probably be in Grants Pass.
Right. One of our recent graduates just worked on the Matrix 4 shoot. She was a production assistant when they were shooting in San Francisco.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing.
All right, and that leaves Nolan.
Hi. It's really hard for me to like, pick a favorite movie, but one of my favorite movies is probably like Raiders of the Lost Ark, because I love all the characters, and the pacing is really good, and then the intro just like kind of grabs you and you can just watch the whole thing really easily.
I love Raiders too, and in fact, we're going to do a little exercise using an image from Raiders in just a little bit. All right, so I think we went through everyone, right, Kurt?
I didn't get to say my favorite movie.
Oh yeah, sorry. Tell us your favorite movie, Kurt.
Well, like Andrew, it's so hard to pick one, but I would say if there's a film that if I'm ever flipping through channels and I see that it's on, no matter what point it is in the film, I have to sit and watch the rest of it. So that would, to me, say that this was a favorite movie, because no matter how many hundreds of times I've watched it, whether it's all the way through or catching it halfway through, I have to watch the rest of it, and that would be Galaxy Quest. It's a fantastic, very funny, loving tribute to all of the cliches of sci-fi, particularly Star Trek, with an incredible cast. Alan Rickman and Tim Allen and Sigourney Weaver and Tony Shalhoub, and all the characters are just fantastic. And it's so ridiculous and over the top, like a good parody is, but it's also just beautifully done and just an entertaining, fun film all throughout that has 100 different lines that you can easily quote, and anyone who's seen it, I haven't heard of anyone say a bad word about that movie ever. Anyone who's seen it loves it.
I just introduced Galaxy Quest to my kids and they loved it. We watched it last weekend. All right. Well, thank you all for introducing yourselves. Also, apologize. I'm having a little bit of a delay, and so if I talk over you, I apologize. For whatever reason, I can't tell when people are done or not. We're going to go through a little bit of an orientation now, just kind of talk about what the program overall is going to look like. So in designing this camp, what we've wanted to do is really take all of you through each stage of the filmmaking process. So today we're going to start with development, which is how do filmmakers shape their stories? Not only the writing of a screenplay, but development involves sort of the massaging of that screenplay until it becomes its best version. And so that can be a very long process before a script gets greenlit to go into production. We are going to do that very quickly, though, because we only have one day to do it. And then we're going to turn our attention to pre-production, which is all the logistical planning of a shoot, figuring out what your locations are going to be, figuring out your crew, your equipment, all that kind of stuff. Again, it's going to be a little different for you because you're going to be working with your available resources in quarantine. But we're still going to go through some of the professional practices that filmmakers do when planning a major production, so that you can sort of see the benefits of that kind of planning. Then we're going to go through principal photography. You'll have Wednesday off to shoot your film, and on Tuesday afternoon we're going to give you some tips about the best practices in terms of going through your production. Then we'll do some post-production tips on Thursday, going through and talking about post-production and not only editing, but sound and effects and music, all of that. And then we'll finish off with actually exhibiting your film and talk a little bit about, what do you do for distribution in a short film? We'll talk about film festivals, we'll talk about the benefits and drawbacks of YouTube and all of that. So that's your schedule. You can see how it's broken down here by the sessions. We have 2 sessions today and tomorrow, then no session on Wednesday, and then a session a day on Thursday and Friday. We have a number of special guests coming in. So this afternoon, we'll have Anna Nicholas. Kurt, do you want to say something about Anna?
Sure. Anna is someone who has been closely affiliated with Klamath Film all this year. We've checked in with her several times. She's fantastic. She is a actress and writer and filmmaker and just kind of a jack of all trades for the film industry. She lives in Portland, but she worked in Hollywood for many years. You might have seen her in multiple films or television shows. She was on things like the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and she spent a lot of time working in theater as well. She's currently working on a independent film that she's actually going to be shooting in Bandon at the end of this year, working on lining up people. Last I talked to her, it sounded like Annette Bening might be in her film that is going to be shot in Bandon, Oregon. So she can talk about script writing, she can talk about acting, she can talk about filmmaking, she can talk about a little bit of everything in the industry. So she will be joining us this afternoon.
Great. And then tomorrow we will have Gary Kaut, who is a local producer, production manager, assistant director, and he'll be talking to us about that pre-production process, sort of, what's important to think about when you're planning a film. Then we'll have on the afternoon tomorrow, we'll have Chairman Barnes to talk about acting. You want to say a little bit about Chairman's resume?
Chairman is a veteran actor in Hollywood, and he's actually a veteran. He was in the Air Force first and then turned to acting in Hollywood. He is what you would call a character actor. He is one of those people that you may not know the name, but you may say, oh, it's that guy who was in that one thing. He has been in tons of television shows, many TV commercials, films, very funny guy, very personable guy. He was also one of our judges this year, one of our awards judges for the Klamath Independent Film Festival. I've known Chairman for about 20 years, and he's just a very fun guy who has a lot of information to share, particularly to give you a little bit of sense of how to perform on camera.
Great. And do you want to go ahead and tell us about our last 2 guests who are recent additions?
So on Thursday, so the day after everyone has shot their footage and we will come back and talk about editing, we have Alex Mervold who will be joining us. Alex is a professional editor in Hollywood. He has done numerous films, documentaries, television shows. He's worked on things like ESPN's 30 for 30 series. Last year, he made a documentary about esports. So if anyone is a fan of competitive video games, he worked on a film about that. So he can talk to us about the basic steps involved in editing and some of the theory behind how to structure a coherent film from all of these different things that you've shot. I always think of editing kind of like painting. When you go out and first film, it's almost like a painter gathering all of their color palette, and then the editing is putting that paint on canvas to create the image. So Alex will be joining us to talk about what it's like to edit a film after you've shot everything. And then on Friday, when we will start looking at everything that all of you have shot, Roland Stafford will be joining us. He is a filmmaker up in Portland. He has a film called One Dead Dog that is going to be in the Klamath Independent Film Festival. Last year, he made a film in Ashland called Road to Bob that was also in our film fest. And I think it showed in the Ashland Film Fest as well. Very fun guy, very entertaining. His new movie, One Dead Dog, is about a family of serial killers that find a squatter in their cabin in Bend, and she also is a serial killer, and chaos ensues. So a lot of fun tropes on the slasher genre of blood and guts and gore, but in a comedic way, kind of like the Evil Dead series. So all of those individuals, as well as who isn't listed, is we will also on Friday have some guests from the Klamath Folk Alliance to come in and talk about music and how music sets the emotional tone and the mood for a film and how important music is. And if you don't think it's important, just think about movies like Jaws or Star Wars and imagine what those movies would be like if they didn't have their score. Instead of two of the greatest films of all time, they would be two of the most boring movies ever made.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the project requirements. There aren't many, but you do have a 5-minute cap. So when you are finished with your film and submitting it to us, it needs to be no longer than 5 minutes, including the credits. It needs to be made with available materials. Now that's really up to you. I mean, if you all want to go spend lots of money on adding to your available materials, we can't control that. The idea behind the camp is really to let's be creative with what's available to you. Work within those creative limitations and see what happens when you really brainstorm around the things that you have around you. We've been doing this at SOU, especially, this is kind of a philosophy we take anyway, but especially with the pandemic in spring, all of my students, none of them could go into production with crews or do the normal projects that they would have done, and they all had this requirement to build a film around the materials you have, and I got some amazing projects. So don't think that this is going to be something that will stand in your way. If anything, I think you might find yourself liberated in certain ways by this restriction. We do ask that everyone follow COVID-19 safety guidelines. If you go to ompa.org, if for any reason you are planning to go out and shoot out in the world, there are some, or collaborate with others, there are some guidelines out there for the film industry. So basically, use social distancing, wear masks when you're working with other people. Generally speaking, though, we expect most people will make their projects with people with whom they're already in contact. So your family, or if you have some friends that you've been interacting with during the pandemic, we just want you to be safe and follow all the guidelines that are out there. This is more of an encouragement than a requirement. We really, like we were talking about Chaplin earlier, we want you to focus on action, not dialogue. And what that means, that doesn't mean that you can't have dialogue in your film, but what it means is that we want you to think about visual storytelling. We want you to think about how to tell a story through the things that characters do, less so on what people are saying to each other. And there are a few reasons for that. One, more than likely, most of you don't have really great audio equipment, which means that if you're filming a dialogue scene with your iPhone, the dialogue's not going to be great. And Kurt, I'm sure, can tell you that something that will keep your film from a film festival faster than anything is bad audio. I think I've seen festivals program all kinds of films that had sort of just okay visuals. They were made with a poor camera or whatever, but it's great storytelling and the audio is good. But I don't think I've ever seen a festival program a great looking film that had terrible audio. Audio is just one of those things that really matters. And so if you're focusing on action, you can use sound effects, you can use music, and those kinds of things, as opposed to worrying about that dialogue. The other thing is, I think it's easier to write. When you sit down and try to tell a story through lots of dialogue, dialogue is more difficult to write than you think. And I can say that because I've taught screenwriting for 10 years. And even though we all talk all the time, most of us don't inherently know how to write talking to sound interesting. So again, I think this is a great way to sort of focus on how can I tell a story through behavior, through the things that characters do, and make it visually engaging. And then finally, no unlicensed music. So Kurt will share with you some resources that we're going to have for you to use music that is available and free to use. But otherwise, if you think, oh, what my movie really needs is this Beyonce track, that's not going to cut it. You can't submit Beyonce, so don't do that.
What I will say
included in your camp. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, as far as music goes, we do have options. And I say it's on this next slide. We do have a license for a music library that everyone will have access to be able to have tracks to download. In addition, several members of the Klamath Folk Alliance, one of our camp sponsor, have graciously offered up their music as well. So we have a link that I will send out to everyone that is full of MP3s that you can use for your films in whatever way that you like from Klamath Folk Alliance members.
Yeah, this is important to learn because, you know, as you start making short films and keep making films, you know, you can't use music that you don't have rights to, and festivals will reject your films if they know you don't have the rights to use the music that you've put in your film. So, you know, this is something we require of our own students. It's something that, you know, Klamath Independent Film Festival requires. So just get in the habit now of using music you have permission to use. Excuse me. And in addition to the licensed music that Kurt's making available to you all, you know, one of the things you can be thinking about as you go forward is, you know, who are musicians that you know? What's the local band you love? And reach out to these people. It's actually, my students have found it's actually not that difficult to find permission to use music when you reach out to some indie band who has their own, who owns the rights to their music. They're usually excited to have someone use their music. So think about those kinds of resources as opposed to, again, stealing music that doesn't belong to you. Included is some licensed music. You should have gotten an invite via email this morning to SOU's Celtics Studio. Celtics is a screenwriting software, but it also has another number of production management tools that we're going to go over. So you can do what's called a script breakdown, which is go through your script and identify all the elements you need for production. So things like props, set dressing, vehicles, animals, whatever it might be. It helps you schedule production. So it has a full scheduler. You can make call sheets. You can make a film budget in Celtics. And so it's a really useful tool. And SOU pays for it and provides it to actually everyone on our campus can use it, although it's mostly our digital cinema students who do so. And so we are providing that to you for 1 year. And Celtics does have a free version where you can write up to 3 scripts. But once you have 3 scripts, you can't write any new projects in there, whereas the studio has unlimited. And my understanding is that once you've created a studio account, even once you're kicked out of it, so after a year, you won't lose any of your scripts that you write. So you can write 100 scripts in this year, and once you leave the studio, you'll still have access to those scripts. You just wouldn't be able to create new ones. And then, of course, we're going to be offering advice and feedback. So as you are working on your projects and have questions, we're here to help you out with that. What we aren't including is video equipment. Obviously, we would have liked to have done that if we were doing the in-person camp. We would be providing some resources for you, but we can't do that. We aren't providing editing software or training in editing software. So, you know, we can give you some tips if you're using Apple devices. iMovie is an easy enough editor to use on an iPhone or iPad. But there are other options out there that will give you some tips on when we get to editing. Obviously, we're not funding your projects. We don't have any resources or budget to pay for anything. So again, working with your available resources is important. And we don't have any cast or crew to offer you. So whatever film you make, even if you're entirely on your own, then maybe you're your own actor, or your movie's gonna be about your dog, or you know, you use a creepy doll or something. But these are kind of your options. Again, that's one of the things that would have been nice about an in-person camp, because we could group you up and we could bring in actors and all that kind of stuff. But we're going to be a little limited on that. So that's just to make sure everyone knows, everyone's on the same page about sort of what's going to be happening here. Anything to add, Kurt?
Well, I did send out an email to everyone that came in your pre-packet that included suggested editing software programs, all of which were free, depending on whether you're using a Mac or a PC, as well as there were links attached to those for basic tutorials. So if you're worried about editing, don't be. We will help guide you through the process, and I would highly recommend that whichever one you either already have access to or have downloaded from the list that we sent you. We sent you 3 of each for either Mac or PC. There was also a YouTube link there that goes step-by-step basic understanding of editing. So I would highly recommend that after you film stuff on Wednesday, maybe you would, whichever editing software you use, you take some time to watch the tutorial for whichever editing software you selected and familiarize yourself with that before we start delving into the theory behind editing and basic editing structure.
Great.
I should say too, if
then, of
anyone
course,
has any questions at any point, you're welcome to unmute yourself and chime in.
yeah, let's pause for questions now. Anyone have any questions?
I have a question. Yeah, I have somebody who I think will be helping me with the film, and I was just wondering if it's okay if she kind of tunes into some of these conversations as well. Probably not all of them, but if she's available.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Her name is Hannah, just in case you see her pop up in the waiting room.
Okay, great. Yeah, Hannah's welcome to join us. Any other
Thank
questions?
you.
This isn't really a question, but it's more of a statement. I was gonna do this. I was gonna do this with my friend, who we've been in contact with over the quarantine, and he was actually out of town for a little bit. So I think he's gonna be here on the 2 o'clock meeting, and definitely tomorrow. So I'll run him over the what we talked about in this meeting.
Okay. Make sure to send him
Yeah, that's fine, no problem.
the email invite link, and he can join in. If anyone who has that link can participate. And also, I will say, we are recording all of these sessions, and I will post them to YouTube afterwards and email everyone the link. So if for some reason you need to step out, or you miss a portion, or you just want to go back and review something that Andrew and I talked about, you will have the video as soon as it's uploaded.
Okay.
All right. So again, as you can see, we do have a prize for a winning film. So of all the films that are submitted at the end of the camp will be judged, and the best film will get a $100 cash prize and will screen at the Klamath Independent Film Festival September 18th through 20th. So you'll actually get your film to get seen by people, which is great. Oh, I had a question slide already, so it's almost there. All right, well, since we already covered questions, I think we are now ready to go into our little challenge break. So, you know, what I found, especially teaching remotely so much in spring, is that in some ways being on virtual calls is much more exhausting than doing other kinds of activities for some reason. So we want to make sure we build in some breaks here for you to get up, move around, and do something. And so we're going to give you a little challenge, and you're going to get 15 minutes to do it. So I was inspired by, during the pandemic, I've been seeing people do these quarantine art challenges where they have taken everyday items in their homes and recreated famous works of art. And it reminded me that it's a very available materials way of working and being creative. And so we're going to do a little something like that. Now, I'm not necessarily expecting anything as even elaborate as some of these examples here, because you're only going to get 15 minutes and you're not picking this, you're just getting it thrown at you. So the level of sort of how you try to capture the essence of this challenge will be interesting, because you know, you can really take any tact with it as that you want, but in whatever way you can, try to sort of see if you can capture the essence. So we talked a little bit about Raiders of the Lost Ark, and so I picked this image from Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is one of the most famous images from that movie. And I want you to take a still picture and remake this shot from Raiders of the Lost Ark. And you have, again, 15 minutes to do it. And obviously, you may not have a fedora, you may not have a golden idol, you may not have a sack of sand or whatever you're working with. So take a moment to look at this image and ask yourself, how can I capture the essence of this image? If you're doing it by yourself and you don't have anyone to sort of help you take the photo, you could do it as a selfie in some way, or you could use a doll or a Lego figure or whatever might be around. But just study this image and think about what can you focus on? Is it the framing? Is it the props? Is it the costuming? Will you try to get across the lighting? Whatever you want to go with. And then when you have your image, email it to digitalcinema@siu.edu. And when we come back, we'll take a look at it. So it is now 10:49 on my watch. So we're going to say 11:05. Come back at 11:05. We'll keep this slide up so that you can take a look at the image. But you have 15 minutes and go and have fun.
Okay, I'm putting a 15-minute timer on my window, so we'll see what everyone comes up with in 15 minutes. And break. Everyone go.
I'm going to step away too. I'll be back.
2-minute warning. 2 minutes left. Hopefully everyone has gotten their shot in and is emailing it to Andrew now. One-minute warning. You got 1 minute left to email your Raiders photo to Andrew. I went ahead and made one as well.
I did too.
Yeah. So Mary Jane did tell me that she was going to have to leave at 11 for an appointment, but that she would check out the video as soon as she got back. But she should be able to attend all the rest of the week.
Okay, so so do we think we're not going to get one from her then?
I don't know. Who? Clem and Ginny and Joni and Nolan,
All right, so-
are you all back? Are you all done?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm downloading them now.
Yes. Just sent the photos.
Terrific. Did you have fun or was that stressful?
It was fun. Yeah, Nick's putting the house back together.
Oh, okay.
Cleanup is
And,
important, right?
Clem, are you back? Clem might still be wrapping up his photo.
All right. So I got entries. Actually got 3 from Jenny and Nick. I have got 1 from Joni, 1 from Nolan, and then 1 from you, Kurt, and mine. So I think Clem is the only one we're missing.
He's probably just wrapping up. Well, you can probably share these on screen, right? Or do you need me to
So let
share?
me no, I can do it. I gotta okay,
Clem
let's see
Clem
here.
is back. Hey Clem,
Hello.
did you send off your photo to Andrew yet?
Yeah, I'm doing that right now.
Okay.
I had a head start
In the
because I was
meantime, let me see if I can. All right. Gonna see if I can get all these into one. Okay. Let me wait until I get Clem so I can put them all in one thing here. And then we'll go fill them.
What props did people find around the house that they could use for a golden idol?
I used my bottle of sanitizer because it's, COVID and everything.
Well played.
I went the what looks closest to the actual idol route and did like an ornament, but mom also had the clever Corona idea and did Clorox wipes. So, you know.
Nolan, what did you use?
I used my dog.
Nice.
All right, Clem, just let me know when it's sent. I'm refreshing.
For anyone who is a fan of video games, particularly old school video games, I'm a huge retro gamer. I used ROB, the robot operating buddy from 1986 with the original Nintendo Entertainment System.
That's clever. I like that.
I'm gonna take a quick look at where we're at in terms of. Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and just share the ones I got so far, and I'll add Clem when we get it. All right. Let's see here. All right. Can everybody see my screen here?
Ooh, guinea pigs.
All right, so this one is the one I did with my daughter, Calliope. We went with guinea pigs. That's pretty much what we do with everything now is guinea pigs. And then I think this is next one is Joni.
Yeah, yeah. So I was using my sacred hand sanitizer and my mask.
Nice. We have Kurt. Nice. And then I'm not sure because I have three from you all. Which one was which here? This is
So the first one,
this one
Andrew, is
Jenny.
my idea. Nick is the actor in all of them.
Okay.
So the
Right.
rice instead of to get the Clorox, and he liked the toilet paper to get the Clorox. That one next, and then his overall idea is the third one.
Gotcha.
Which is this little ornament thing, and then I just like put a bag of lentils in a napkin.
Nice.
That's our
Okay.
dog.
Well, I think yeah, I think you definitely won on this one wins on props and wardrobe. Nice job.
Thank you. I have a head start.
the milk for the dog.
Excellent.
Oh, that's cute.
Dude, I love your hat. That's A+.
So this is Nolan?
Yeah.
Nice. Very fun. All right, is that everyone? Yep. Okay, so let me see if Clem's has come through yet. All right, Clem, I'm still not getting your image. If you having trouble sending?
Yeah, I'm having trouble sending. I
We
took
lost
it off my
Clem.
phone
Nope.
and I'm trying to send it to my mom's email so then she can send it to you, but I don't know exactly how to do that.
Okay. All right. Well, if you figure it out, we'll let me know when it actually goes through, and we can come back and show it. For now, I'm going to go ahead and keep moving on, but we do want to take a look at your example. So please do send it when you get it
All right.
through. All right. I'm going to go back you changing my share. Figure out how to do this. I'm going to stop sharing and then reshare using. Oh, you know what I have to do? I have to start this before I click on it. Okay.
We learned that the hard way.
Yes, yes. You got it down. All right, you're seeing the slide again?
There, we are seeing the slide.
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Well, great. Good job, everyone. So I think this shows that we definitely have a group of people who are capable of doing this available materials kind of work. Everyone had great creative stabs at this, and so I think this will be fun. I think we don't need to worry at all about you all coming up with stories. All right, so let's move on into our actual session, going through what do we mean by available materials filmmaking. So Kurt did send some, here's our agenda. We already did our program orientation. We want to talk a little bit about the Available Materials School of Filmmaking. We want to talk a little bit about how to think about story structure and how do you make, turn those materials into a story. And then we're going to give you a pitch assignment. And so you'll have the break from noon to 2 to develop a pitch. And so when we come back at 2, everybody's going to pitch a story idea. So Kurt sent some video content out to you all, and I hope everyone got a chance to watch it. We asked you to watch a video a speech by Mark Duplass from the South by Southwest Film Festival, in which he talked about the Available Materials School of Filmmaking. And then we sent you a link of a short film by Mark and his brother called This Is John, which was made in using this philosophy. And so I just wanted to hear some thoughts from you all about that video. So first of all, when you listened to Mark talk about this approach, what is the Available Materials School of Filmmaking to you? Like, what is the overall philosophy here?
I'm not certain if I got that. Maybe could you resend it? I'm not sure if I got that.
Joni, did you get the email that I sent out that had the survey and the schedule and all that?
Maybe. I'll search my email now. Would it just be, it would have your name?
Yes, so it would have come from info at Klamath Film, and it would have had a survey, it would have had the schedule of all of our links, or all of our meetings, and in there it would have had what you need to do.
Okay.
And one of those things was a video. It's about an hour-long speech. You don't have to watch the entire speech. About the first, maybe 15, 20 minutes of it, Mark talks about how he got into filmmaking and what you're going to do.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely something you can catch up on the break. There's enough time to catch up on it during the break. So if you did not get a chance to watch this, there's still time. Was there anyone here who has gotten to watch this?
We watched it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I watched it.
I watched it.
Great. Cool. Okay. So for those of you who were able to watch it, can you tell me, what was the gist of the Available Materials School of Filmmaking to you? What did you take away from that?
I really liked one thing that he said about it, which was the way he put it was reverse engineering a film around the resources that you have. So basically, instead of being like, okay, here's my story idea, how do I, what can I use to tell this story? It's more of, okay, here's what I have, what story can I make out of it?
Exactly. We have, in traditional filmmaking, there's what we call a division of labor, right? Where different people are in charge of different components of filmmaking. And so most screenwriters, they are trained to write as if someone else will worry about all your story problems, how to make this. Your idea, your job is to come up with a really great idea and to write it really well and to create great characters. But it's not your job to worry about budget. It's not your job to worry about, you know, how doable it is. There's other people who do that. And so that's great for screenwriters who want to go and, like, you know, try to sell a script or get on a TV show or something. But it's really hard for the independent filmmaker or the student filmmaker, those of us who are you know, have to come up with all of it ourselves, right? We're going to be the ones directing this. We're going to be the ones making it. So when we learn to tell stories in that sort of pie in the sky way that says, well, I'll just come up with the greatest idea I can possibly come up with and then figure it out later, what we end up getting stuck with is a project that's impossible to do. And it also becomes an excuse for aspiring filmmakers to say, oh yeah, I have that thing I'm going to work on as soon as the materials come together for me, right? As soon as I can raise the money, as soon as I can meet the right people, I'll get to make my film. And Duplass uses the phrase, the cavalry isn't coming, over and over again. And the idea is that, you know, in traditional filmmaking, there's often this idea that if you can just prove your worth, the cavalry will come, meaning someone will come over and discover you and give you money and give you resources, and suddenly you'll be famous and rich and make all the movies you've always wanted to make. His point is that that almost never happens. And so if as a filmmaker, you're waiting for other people to give you permission to make movies, you're going to be waiting a long time. But if you go this reverse engineer way, right, and you start saying, you know what, I'm not gonna write with the idea that someone else is gonna figure this out for me. I'm gonna write from the standpoint of knowing what my resources are, what my materials are, and figure out how can I turn that into a story. And so if you watch the full video, again, you get the basic gist in the first 20 minutes or so. But he talks about how he and his brother have done this with a number of films, whether it's their short films or their breakout feature film, Puffy Chair, where they said, well, you know, we have these 3 actors we can work with, we have our apartments, we have a car, there's this cool puffy chair that we like at a thrift store, let's buy that. And they start making a story around it, right? And so what we want you to do is the same kind of thing. We want you to think about, all right, rather than dream of all the stories I've ever wanted to tell, which there might be time for you to tell those stories, how can I look at what I have in front of me and make a story out of that? The other thing Duplass talks about, and I can't remember if he talks about it in this video or if I'm thinking of another interview, but he also recommends, you know, even when you have that dream story, that story you've always wanted to tell, that you know, it takes place in space, it's a space opera or whatever. He says, all right, so think about what the beating heart of that story is. What's the core? It's not about the spaceships. It's not about, you know, the lightsabers. It's about human drama. It's about the things that happen between people. How can you tell that part of it in the resources you currently have? So you can also, you know, just because you start with your available materials doesn't mean you don't, you know, you have to throw out all the ideas you care about. It's about narrowing it down to what's the core. What is that key part? And we do this at SOU with our students. So all of the students who go through our first production class, which is called Digital Cinema Production, they have to do this. In fact, when we do it in person, what we do is we break students up into groups, and they have 2 hours to come up with the film that they're going to make that term. And they have to pull together their available materials and pitch a bunch of ideas, and then they come up with a thing that they're going to work on that term. In the online version, they do it individually and just build it around theirs. You're going to do it in a week. So first of all, let me ask, like, what do you like about this idea? Because I think there's things that are appealing about it and things that are sort of daunting and unappealing. So when you hear this idea and this approach to filmmaking, what do you like about it?
It's accessible.
Yeah, you can actually do something, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it from the perspective of what do I have to tell the story versus how do I find what I need to tell the story, it just becomes much more accessible to you and available, because you're being creative, as you know, as we were with the last exercise you just worked with us on. You know, you're twisting your brain in a different way and thinking in a really creative way, and that also kind of stirs up some creative energy, I think. So I like that about it.
Yeah,
To
absolutely.
give
I really am a
everyone.
strong believer in. Go ahead, Kurt.
Sorry, Andrew. I was just gonna add to that. Yesterday, I was interviewing one of our filmmakers for this year's film festival, who made a beautiful film because he found a bird mask in an attic and came across a prop metal detector with a built-in theremin in it. And between these two things, he wrote his entire story and built his entire film around it. And it was so good that it was one of our top-rated films for this year's film festival. The entire impetus for that film was finding a random bird mask and coming across this cool little movie prop that was a metal detector, but it made all these creepy sounds because it had a built-in theremin in it. And he decided, well, I'm going to make a story out of this.
That's funny. Yeah, another example of this, if you have Netflix, a film I would recommend that actually stars Mark Duplass is The One I Love. And that was actually a film that was written by one of my best friends. And the way that film came about, and it was made for, I want to say the budget was like $100,000. The way the film came about was that my friend and his partner, who was the director of the film, they met at AFI in graduate school. They had been in what's called development hell for about a decade on a film that they wanted to make. It was what that means is that you have a script that's kind of popular, people want to be a part of it, but it keeps coming together in a package and then keeps falling apart. So an actor gets attached, then actor leaves, or money comes together, but an investor pulls out. And so they had this kind of $5 million project that had been praised by a lot of big people, had a lot of different really big actors attached, but they kept leaving. And they sent it to Mark Duplass as a possible star. And he responded basically saying, I love this script, but if I sign on to it, the same thing's going to keep happening. I'm going to sign on, but then something's going to happen, and then I'm going to, my schedule won't align. I'm going to have to pull out. But I have a window of time, 6 months from now, and I have a one sentence idea that I'll send to you. And I will commit to you right now that if you write a script using available materials, I will give you that window of time and I will pay for the movie. And so he sent them the idea, told them to write, and the idea was, well, I don't want to give it because it actually kind of gives away the movie, but the movie is a really funny, quirky sort of sci-fi romantic comedy. And so what they did is they said, all right, so how can we turn this one sentence into a movie? And they realized, all right, well, the director's family it was a fairly wealthy family with an estate in Ojai. And so they're like, all right, we can make the entire movie on this estate, and the entire crew can live at the estate during the film. And his father-in-law was actor Ted Danson, from Cheers and other things, The Good Place. And so they could get him to play one character. Mark Duplass had been wanting to work with Elizabeth Moss for a while, and she had the same window of time. So they had to write it just for those three actors, and almost all of it taking place at this one estate. And then they would take details that were in the estate and write it into the script. And so they had this thing that they just made it. And so that's, I highly recommend it. It's called The One I Love. It's on Netflix, and it gives you just a great example of how filmmakers can write a really quirky movie that ended up being a Sundance breakout and got my friend his screenwriting career. And so again, another example there. What don't you like about this idea? Because I think there's definitely things that are drawbacks. Anything that's scary about it, or that just is like, oh, I don't want to do this?
I guess just like, I just have some concern that maybe you kind of would waste the idea. So for example, if you do have an amazing idea, but you don't have any funding, and you kind of are maybe doubting yourself and thinking, oh, I'll never get funding, I'll just make this on my cell phone. Maybe if you had waited 6 to 9 months and applied for some grants you could have actually found like some meaningful resources to put behind it.
Gotcha. Yeah, the fear that like, oh, I blew my best idea on something that's not going to be as good as it could have been if I waited.
Yeah, and just
I
like
think that's a
speaking of
really interesting
experience that
concern.
happened to
I
me
think,
recently. Yeah,
oh
I
yeah.
was helping my friend make an album of original music, and we were just gonna record it on the cheap. And then at the last minute, a ton of donations came through, and he was able to make like a really incredible product. So I feel like I just learned a really big lesson in that.
One thing about that, Joni, to
Sure.
take into mind, whether you're talking about music or film, I worked in the music industry for many years in Hollywood. A lot of albums are pre-recorded before they're recorded. People go out and they make demos. They make click tracks to kind of get a sense of what the song is going to be, or they'll do rough cuts of just footage that they shoot in their backyard as a test model for what will then become the full-length feature film. So it's okay to make something on the low end budget just to see, like, how could I do this? Is this feasible? And get all of those little bugs out of, like, okay, what would be a cool camera angle, or hey, would this work? And if it doesn't, well, then you can pursue more money or more opportunity to remake it the way that you want to later on. Once you have it done, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's it. You can never go back and readdress it.
Yeah, thanks. That's true.
I have a funny example of that. If you know the filmmaker Michael Mann, another one of my favorite films is a movie that he did called Heat, which is this real epic crime drama starring Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. That's actually the second time he made that movie. And a little known is that it was first a made-for-TV movie called LA Takedown. And I really don't know how he got the rights, because it is the same script. I mean, it's definitely been upgraded and revised between the two versions. But there are multiple scenes that are direct copies of, it's the entire same structure. But it's so funny because the LA Takedown is like I think a late 80s, early 90s, really cheesy made for TV movie with not great actors. And to watch the same like bad movie then be remade with some of the greatest actors of all time, and just how great it is with good actors. But anyway, so that's an example of a top level director who did that. But the other thing I think is, and I totally understand that fear, and I think it's a fear that a lot of people have, is like, well, what if I waste my idea? I would also encourage you to let go of that if you have any desire to work in film, because every screenwriter friend I know will tell you the majority of their ideas are going to die. And they're going to die not necessarily because they don't work out in terms of getting to a screenplay or don't even get purchased. It's that they get purchased and then they are never made. I have every friend I have who's a screenwriter has had multiple projects die in development. And they just have to let go of that. They have to know that, like, I wrote that script that I love, and it's never going to be seen because it got bought and then didn't get made, and it's just nothing's ever going to happen of it. Same thing with like pilots, right? I have a number of friends who've written television pilots that got picked up and produced, but no one ever saw the pilot because the network decided not to go with it. And so I think one of the things you have to think about as a filmmaker, if you want to work in the film industry and you want to write in the film industry especially, is you can't be precious about your ideas, and you have to know that you're going to have other ideas. And that thing that you think is your best idea, it's just the best idea you have right now, and you're going to have other great ideas. And so I would just always encourage you to like take every opportunity to pursue the ideas you have, under the within the limitations that you have to pursue them now. Just keep writing more ideas. So that's one thing to keep in mind too. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how you actually do this, because it's one thing to say like, all right, I've surveyed my materials, I know what I have available, but how do I go about turning this into a story? And so I want to talk a little bit about story structure because I think everyone does have an inherent understanding of story structure because we live our whole lives in stories, but sometimes we don't really think about it and we don't know how to articulate it. So I teach storytelling at SOU. We have a class called Storytelling Foundations that every digital cinema major is required to take before they do other classes. And in that class, actually, what we do is I have them start with telling personal stories because I think it's you write what you know and before you write what you don't know. And I think that a really great way of learning story structures is to learn to tell your own stories and then move it into fiction. But these are the elements that pretty much every story needs to have. Every story has a setting of some kind. It takes place somewhere at some time. So you need a setting. Every story has a protagonist or multiple protagonists sometimes, but whose story is it? Whose story am I going to tell? Who's the person who is moving the story forward? Every good protagonist has a desire. What is the objective that they're going after? Whether it's something they need, something they want, is it something that they have that they're trying to protect, or something that they never had that they're trying to get? But there's some desire there. And then there has to be an obstacle, an obstruction to that desire. So that can be an antagonist, a villain. It can be a natural disaster, right? You can have armies. You can have all, we can look at all kinds of levels of antagonism. It doesn't have to be a person. It can be a state of being. It can be poverty, right? There are all kinds of different things that we can have as obstacles in a story, but something has to be in the protagonist's way. No one ever really enjoyed a story where it was, once upon a time there was a guy named Andrew. He wanted something, he got it right away at the end, right? That's not a terribly compelling story. But if Andrew has to, go to the ends of the earth to get that thing because of the obstacles, that becomes more interesting. And then we need an action or a decision by the protagonist, right? If the protagonist has a desire, hits an obstacle and says, all right, I'm going home, I give up right away, that's not an interesting story either. We want to see stories where characters take action in pursuit of their goal. So they take a risk, right? They put themselves out there and risk failure in order to get what they want. And then we want a consequence. So that can be success or failure, right? They can go after what they want and it ends in tragedy, and that's a consequence. Or they get it and they're rewarded, and that's a consequence. But every story needs these 6 elements: a setting, a protagonist desire, an obstacle, some source of antagonism, an action or decision that the protagonist makes, and what happens as a result of this. So I like to put this in the form of a sentence, and you can use this sort of as Mad Libs, right? If you can just plug in these components, you have a pitch, and this is what you're going to do during the break. So a protagonist in the setting desires X, but an obstacle stands in their way, forcing them to take an action which ends in a consequence. And so I've plugged in the details. I told you Back to the Future is one of my favorite films. If you haven't seen it, here's a little bit of a spoiler. But if you just plug it in like Mad Libs, a teenager from 1985 who is stuck in 1955 after accidentally traveling back in time, so we have our setting, wants to go back to the future. That's his desire. But a disruption in his parents' love story, what is the obstacle, stands in his way, forcing him to play their matchmaker, which ends in a better future than the one he left. So here we have the plot of Back to the Future in one sentence by simply plugging in a protagonist, a setting, desire, obstacle, take an action, and a consequence. And pretty much you can do this with any story. Plug in these details. You might have to, it might be a little awkward. You might have to rephrase the sentence a little bit here or there to make it work. But you can pretty much get any story and tell it this way. So with the available material school, you're simply brainstorming, how do you fill these holes? So, your protagonist, well, we know who we have to work with. We have the people in our house, or a friend who's going to come over, or a neighbor that we're working with. But that's it. So one of these people has to be our protagonist. Who's it going to be? All right. What's the setting? Well, the setting might be my house, or my backyard, or my neighborhood, whatever. But think about around that. What do they desire? Well, what would be a fun desire? What props do you have? What do you have a vehicle that maybe they want? Or think through those available materials and think out what would be the thing that would be fun to be the desire for my protagonist. What's the obstacle that stands in their way? How can I create an obstacle with my available materials? Forcing them to take an action. What kind of action can I do within the stay-at-home situation that we're in? What kind of action is available to me, and what kind of consequence can I take? Can I give? And so let me pull up for myself. I won't put it on the screen, but I do have the survey answers that some of you used. So would anyone mind if we do a little exercise with your survey results? Clem, you did the survey. Would you mind if we do a little brainstorming with your available materials?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm just gonna pull some things up here. Let's see. Let me see if I can isolate this line here. That way maybe I can share it with people. Okay. Give me 1 second.
While Andrew is working on that, since he's been talking about Back to the Future, there's a very fun project that was made this year that directly correlates, and I would highly recommend it. It's called Project 88, and it's available on YouTube. It was made by actually one of our filmmakers who is going to have a film in the Klamath Independent Film Festival. And what he did, because everyone knows Back to the Future, knows the significance of the number 88, he cut up Back to the Future Part 2 into 88 different scenes and said, anyone who wants to make something, pick a scene. And 88 different film teams from all over the world shot one scene. Some did animations, some did with kids, some did it in their living rooms, some did all sorts of crazy things. And then Taylor took everyone's 88 separate clips and put them back together and made a mishmashed Back to the Future Part 2 of 88 different filmmakers providing 88 different scenes that all blended together, all done in a time of COVID, of people doing it from home using available materials. So if you get a chance, in fact, I can email out the link to that. It's called Project 88, and everyone should know Back to the Future Part 2. It's weird and it's amazing, and it shows what people can do with available materials.
There's also a Princess Bride one that's just been made too. All right, so everybody able to see Clem's responses here? All right, so let's look at some of the things we have. So looks like you have okay drum, trumpet, and funny skills, comedy skills. You're innovative, that's good. And you have a little bit more cast to work with because you're partnering with a friend, and you have parents and siblings, so that's great to think about. It gives you a little more latitude. So you have a house, an empty desert behind your house. That's fun. You have possibly a dad's business and shop, and possibly a dad's restaurant. So you have some great locations to pick from. You have a minivan, a truck, an SUV, dog, cat, boat, and army gear. Okay, so you got some interesting things to work with there. Let's see. You have interests in video games, skateboarding, school, and math, and you like superhero, sci-fi, and comedy. Okay. Well, so let's think about something that we could do here. So imagine if we had a a comedy about a former former member of the military who just really wants to be a drummer. All they care about is being a drummer. And so what could stand in their way? Any ideas?
They're deaf from explosions in war, but they really want to be a musician, but they're hard of hearing because they were working with artillery or tanks in the military, and they lost most of their hearing. But they still want to play drums because it's the one thing that they can hear.
Oh, okay, good. So
you
what do
could
they do?
have
What
some
kind of
fun
action
on
might
that.
they take? What kind of action could they take, Kurt?
Well,
What would
I
they
was
do in
waiting for
pursuit of
I was
overcoming?
prompting for others to chime in. So overcome, well, they could just hit the drums as hard as humanly possible. Or maybe they could try the stomp approach, and instead of drums, just pound on oil cans and sinks and anything else, anything where they can actually hear. And everyone thinks that they're crazy because they're running around in army gear all around town and in restaurants and just banging on things because it's the only way that they can hear anything.
Alternative thought, maybe he's trying to get some sort of exposure, and he plays at the restaurant at some point or something, and that's where he gets noticed.
Sure.
Maybe the
Also a great
conflict
idea.
What
is
kind of boat is it?
a boat.
It's just like a drift boat.
Drift boat? I feel like that's a great drift boat is a fun prop. I'm trying to think of what you might do with a drift boat. You could have
Ginny
a weird
had an
thing where
idea
it's
for
like,
a second there, and she got cut off a little bit. Ginny, what were you trying to
oh,
say?
I didn't hear.
Oh, that's okay. I just said maybe some of the conflict, if he's trying to be a drummer, is his family, since there's a large number of family there that you can pick from to kind of create some conflict.
Mhm. Sure, absolutely. I'm starting to get a totally different idea around this drift boat, like thinking about like a Noah's Ark type story where there's a guy who's in his drift boat and he's in it's perfect sunshine outside, but he's telling everyone the rain's coming, we all gotta get in the boat, and he's trying to convince everyone to get in the boat with him or something like that, with a dog and the cat. You can see there's lots of different things you can brainstorm around your available materials here. Superhero and sci-fi. This is one of the things that I think people should keep in mind too, that available materials doesn't keep you out of a genre. People tend to think, oh, sci-fi, I need like ships and inventions and things like that. But sci-fi can be really simple. Again, the one I love was a sci-fi film. If you've ever seen, if you haven't seen it, you should check out the film Primer, another very low budget sci-fi film about time travel. Safety Not Guaranteed, another one that Mark Duplass is in, a
Cube
micro budget
is a
film
great
about
one.
time travel.
Cube is an incredible
Yeah.
sci-fi film that was made
So
in Canada that they just shot in one room.
yeah. So think about that, just because, if you want to do sci-fi or you want to do a superhero story, maybe it's a superhero who's retired. He's hung up the cape. He's trying to adjust to everyday life now. Trying to figure out what I do with my life now that or a superhero in quarantine, right? Superhero can't go outside because he's on stay-at-home orders. He's going nuts because he just wants to go and save someone, but he can't. You can do all kinds of things. So sci-fi story, you could do a time travel story without ever having leaving your house. A person you could pull some cardboard and foil together, create a time machine, and it's someone who could travel through time, but only 5 minutes, and they're stuck in the same house. And they get stuck in the loop. these kinds of things. Another great time travel movie that I just saw that's really funny. It's not a low budget film, but it's inventive and something that I think is good for ideas. Is on Hulu. Palm Springs is a pretty funny movie. Yeah, so I think I see all kinds of ideas here. So this is a really great list, and just keep thinking around, all right, how can I go into this list and come up with, all right, there's a protagonist, a setting, they have a desire, but there's an obstacle. And what are they going to do in pursuit of that obstacle? And whatever they do has to be within my resources. Whatever the obstacle is, it needs to be within my resources. Whatever their desire is needs to be within my resources. But think creatively through those resources, because you can use them in all kinds of different ways. I just really don't have my PowerPoint up.
That's a great list to get started with. There's
Somebody
all
else-
sorts of different things you could go with.
I'm trying to get back to GoToMeeting. I can't find it for some reason. I'm like stuck out of GoToMeeting. All right, there it is. Found it. And switch back to PowerPoint. So that brings us to your assignment for the next session. So review the materials and interests you catalog in the survey. And if you haven't taken the survey yet, let's make sure that you did get that link, because we want you to do that survey, and that way it helps you catalog what you have. And using those available materials, interests, generate as many log lines, which are one sentence pitches like this, as you can create using that format. And so what I do with my students is I literally have them, and kind of what we just did a little bit, but once they go through and identify all those resources, they have to generate as many log lines as they can. And they're not allowed to think about the log lines or evaluate them, whether they're good or bad, until they've generated a whole bunch. And I think that's important because sometimes, once you get these available resources, you come up with an idea. I'm like, all right, I got an idea. I'm gonna go make that movie. But again, the idea you have now is only the best idea you have now. Keep working through it and don't judge yourself. Don't think, oh, that's a stupid idea. I'm not gonna write that one down. Just keep writing. Generate as many as you can. You can even combine them. You can come up with two and then realize, oh wait, let's give that protagonist the same obstacles as the second one, and just generate lots of ideas. And once you've come out and once you're just exhausted with ideas, look through them and say, all right, what are the three that get me the most excited? And that I think that actually could be a 5-minute short film. And what we want you to do is come back and pitch 3 of your ideas. If you don't come up with 3 that are strong, that's okay. We'll hear your one idea, but we'd love to be able to hear each person come up with 3 log lines at least that you think are potentially doable within your resources as a short film. And what we'll do is we'll have each of you share them, and then we'll ask questions and we'll give you feedback. We'll say, oh, we really liked that one. That protagonist was really interesting. Can you say more about that? Or maybe we'll have a suggestion and say like, oh, do you have any of this in your house? Because that could be an interesting addition. So you'll have 2 hours to do that, a little over 2 hours if we break now, but you might have some questions. But I think, again, in my experience, my students do this in 2 hours and come up with full ideas. So I think you all have more than enough time to come up with some really great ideas. Any questions about this process and what we're expecting of you right now?
Just wanted to clarify, how long is the next session? Is it just 2 to 3?
The next session,
2 to 4, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be 2 to 4. We will have a guest in our next session, so we'll have an opportunity for a Q&A and a conversation there. And
Okay,
that can
great.
go for however long or short as we want it to be. So we'll present more materials, but then we'll also have a guest come in to talk about kind of what they do with filmmaking and offer advice.
Thank you.
Mhm.
If there's no other
Any other
questions,
questions?
I have a short little film that I would like to show with the remaining couple of minutes that we have, unless someone has some more questions.
It's fine with me.
Okay, well, in that
And
case,
Kurt, but can you, Kurt,
yeah.
before you do that, are you
Mhm.
able to send them the slides? Will you be sending them the slides?
Yes, I will.
Just want to make sure they have this format for the pitch.
Mhm. So I am going to
All
email
right, I
everyone
will.
as soon as we are done here with the PowerPoint presentation that we just went through, as well as once I get it uploaded, the link to session 1. If you need to go back and review anything, you'll have the video as well. Clem, it sounded like you had a question there first.
Yeah, I was wondering what's the email address I need to send the picture to.
Oh, it was in the slide before, but Andrew took it down. The digital cinema at SOU, is that correct?
Yeah, digitalcinema@sou.edu.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up this session with a fun little video. This is actually one of our accepted films for this year's Klamath Independent Film Festival, and it shows what someone can do with very limited materials. It was made by Lori Nussbaum, who lives here in Klamath Falls, and she loves puzzles and board games, and she's been stuck inside for months like we all have due to COVID-19. And so she made a stop motion film with nothing more than a puzzle, her phone, and her headset for her phone. Now, Andrew talked about how audio was oftentimes a deal breaker for films. This was a film where the audio came in absolutely terrible, but our judges looked at it not for the technical achievement, but for the greater arc of filmmaking. And our judges loved it in spite of its limitations. So I think this is a great example of the kind of thing that you can do with available materials that you have. If you have a phone and a puzzle and a little free time, you could make a film just like this. So this film is called The Puzzle. Okay, so I'm going to play this and then we will see everyone back here at 2 o'clock. Okay. Hey, hang on just a second. I forgot to turn on audio. Bear with me.
Let's solve this puzzle. Puzzles are pretty easy. Let's group by color. Oh, are these all gold? They seem to be. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's start again. Let's go with edge pieces. That seems to be a better technique. Okay, we got a few, and that's not quite an edge piece. Okay, let's start again. Maybe if we just have the perfect piece to begin, we can do that. There we go. Okay, so this is an interesting puzzle. I guess it's sort of going together piece by piece, like a normal puzzle. Just happens to be all gold. Like why would somebody choose to do a gold puzzle? This is just so confusing, but ooh, circles, this is sort of fun. I guess this just shows that each puzzle is unique and, very distinct in the way that you should do it. Or some people are like, I would never even try to do this puzzle because I'm missing. But we're getting it piece by piece. It's kind of long. It's a little, a little bit tougher of an image, but this was kind of having a picture to go by to sort of use as a guideline on what the finished product should look like. So it's really we're just sort of trying to fit this together with no real notion of how it should be an end result, which can make puzzles tougher in the long run and in the short run. But just keep and do your best. Because some things are just frustrating and it just takes time and patience, and you just gotta keep working at it and just really persevere. And then other times, just all falls into line. Like look at that, oh, like it's just so easy, so flawless. Like puzzles could always be like that, but it's not always. Sometimes it's difficult, sometimes it's not. It just really depends. Some puzzles are much easier, and while other puzzles are like this one, where it's just like, oh my goodness, to like a different even level. Most people, I don't think would even have considered this even possible for a puzzle. And then those is challenging. So because puzzles start to evolve, you can see the patterns, and things become easier. Some places are very easy, and other places are difficult, but it's coming together. It is also interesting that the relationships where the connection between the pieces and how they walk, and the satisfaction that when you get the right piece in the right place, how that feels with all the pieces the same color. This really affects different people's strategies. Most people do not do a puzzle based on the shape of the puzzle pieces, or at least not to begin with. Maybe once they have a certain area, they have one spot that they still have to go. For the most part, most people group and categorize and create a little based on the colors within it. And so if this just was all gold, makes it super tough. But here we are almost done. Woohoo! We have completed life. Wait. I meant we have completed the puzzle. Wait. Is life like a puzzle or a puzzle like life? Stop. Let's rewind. It's perspective, right? So puzzle could be sort of like the life, how it evolves and comes together. And that really at the end of life, you can look back and see the whole puzzle, and you can see all the different interactions within your life, your relationships, and how they came about together, as well as how you have changed and grown throughout life, and how each thing has affected you in some way, some more than others, or some, just barely than anything. But you never know what's going to be more impactful in your life, which piece, what thing, situation, person is noticeable until much later on in life when you're looking back, reflecting, looking at how you came out, what certain situation came about, that you really can connect with the pieces. And life can be really challenging at times, such as like all gold puzzle. Like what is that? Who decided to do that? Who decided to that should be something that needs to be done? But hey, puzzle challenges we do not pick. It just falls in front of us, and we have to decide how we will approach it and address it. And some people it's easy, some people it's difficult, but ultimately it definitely shows your character and how you approach the puzzle.
Okay, so I realize the audio may have been messed up on that even more than it actually is in the film. My playback software for showing videos apparently caused a lot of echo. I'm sorry about that, but hopefully you get the point that you can make something with just a phone and a cheap little microphone that can still make it into a film festival. So hopefully you enjoyed seeing that, and we will see everyone back here at 2 o'clock.